Hi, friends. Host Eric here, host Talking with Fence People. The topic tonight is basically logic, argumentation, reasoning, philosophy, stuff like that, politics as well to a certain extent. And it begins with the question, do trees grow from the bottom up? It's an extremely revelatory question about thinking, about deductive reasoning, and a lot of other things in life. It's a great example of a science question that explains how science works with philosophy to determine things. By philosophy, I mean conditional logic. So, does a tree grow up from the bottom or from the top? Well, let's look at our toenails. Our toenails grow up from the bottom. What this means is if you're a lady and you paint your toenails, the painted part moves away from the bottom of your toenail because your toenail is growing out from the bottom. Now, the thing is, if I just asked you the question, basically, how would you test this question of whether or not something grows from the bottom or the top? Is it really different? I mean, doesn't it just sort of maybe just stretch out or something? Is that a meaningful question to ask? Well, yeah, it is a meaningful question to ask. So it's one that has sort of an implicit test to it as well to find out if something grows from the bottom or the top. And it's got a perfect kind of TE situation that's linked to it. So let's say I want to hang something from a tree, or I want to make it an anchor point in like a three-pointed bit of cord that's stretched across 3 points, and I'm going to hang like a tarp over it or something. Well, I need to know if this is a long-term plan to leave this thing here for a long time anyway. I need to know whether that one that goes into the tree is going to be moving up over time or not. Relative to what? Relative to the ground. And so this is what makes this such a good example. It has clear answers to all of those questions. Well, how are we defining up? Higher relative to the ground. What's the alternative to up? That it stays relative to the ground in the same spot over time. What conclusion can we draw if it moves up over time? That trees grow from the bottom. What conclusion can we draw if it grows, if the thing you nail into a tree stays in the same spot? We can conclude that the tree grows from the top. Now, it's worth noting, as far as I can tell, there's no way of observing this phenomenon directly. Like, it would be easy enough to argue that it's a meaningless question whether a tree grows from the top or the bottom. It just grows up, it just grows. It requires this sort of physical situation to exemplify, no, it's not a meaningless question, because whether it grows from the bottom or grows from the top is going to change how you relate to it. If I want to hammer something into the tree and I want it to stay in the same spot relative to the ground, then if that's going to be the reality that I encounter, then I'm going to need the tree to grow from the top. If I want it to go up over time, like if I'd like to have a naturally occurring slow lifting thing for some reason, like, look, this is going to droop over time, so let's just nail it to the tree and it'll slowly get higher up there and then it'll remain taut. We just have to time it to the right timings. You might do that, Well, then you need a tree to grow from the bottom. Maybe some trees grow from the bottom and some trees grow from the top. It's possible. We have, the fortunate thing is we have a way to test it. You just nail something into a tree and see if it goes up over time relative to the ground. And it turns out the trees, they all grow from the top. They don't grow from the bottom. Your hair grows from the bottom. You can see that on any woman's hair who has her hair dyed a different color than its natural color. Over time, their roots look different than the outside parts. So there's this thing that happens with, I don't remember the name of it. Kimberly told me about it. She was a hairdresser, so I learned some hair things. But I think that happens with Mexicans who get their hair bleached blonde, and then a little while after that, they get these really dark roots underneath them. And that phenomenon has a specific name amongst hairdressers, I guess. I don't know. The point being that that's proof that hair grows from the bottom. And so it's like, if you would approach the question from what's most intuitively resonant as the truth, so the tree grow from the bottom or the top, I would guess most people would say probably from the bottom, because after all, it's how your hair grows. That's how your toenails and your fingernails grow. It's how grass grows. It appears to, right? It's like it pokes its little head out of the ground and comes up like this. It appears to grow from the bottom up. Well, it doesn't, though, because that doesn't really tell you if it's growing from the bottom up or not, right? The fact that it's getting taller doesn't tell you where it's getting taller from. And just because it grows over time in the same fashion that a hair does or a toenail doesn't mean it operates according to the same mechanics. So the thing is, we can use this example of a thing to both exemplify what should science do. What should science do? Science is the process of figuring out how to determine with deductive certainty that a given proposition is true or false, provided the given proposition is about the mechanics of things in the physical world. So when we talk about other things in science, a lot of times we forget that that's its job. Its job is to explain things, provide answers that are deductively certain. That's the job of scientific theories. For example, theory of relativity. Certain aspects of it are deductively certain once you accept that given elements of it are facts and evidence, so to speak. Like, there are certain kinds of observations that are very difficult to deny, even if they're not based on any kind of specific test. Things like if I'm far away and you yell at me, it takes a little while for the sound to travel from you to me. Observations like that are about the nature of the universe, the nature of the world, and whatever. That sound waves travel at a certain speed, they pass through a medium, they that visual data passes through the same medium faster than audio data does, and it's beautiful. So it's like when you go to answer questions about the world and you begin with those kind of observations, then sometimes you can make it such that explanations go from just musings to things that we can count on to be true, and we know why it's true because of some sort of test that eliminated the other possibilities. Now, science does a good job of this in most of its theorizing, except in biology. What's referred to as the theory of evolution is not a theory at all. It makes no attempt to be deductively certain about anything. It explains nothing. And it doesn't know what it is. Okay. I'm super tired all of a sudden. I'm going to bed. Good night.